Hello everyone and welcome back. It's just me today, so don't worry about having to keep track of two disembodied voices. Today we're going to be starting the game's second world, the desert. And the first level is a far cry from most of the levels in the first world. It has a solid, coherent theme that bucks the usual trend of desert levels and platformers. I'm pretty excited, so let's not waste any time. Given the style of cacti and fences we saw back in the opening area, you can probably make a pretty educated guess already. This first world, if the name didn't give it away, is actually an American Southwest style desert. The whole level is themed after westerns. This is a huge breath of fresh air compared to the usual desert-faring games, which are almost always Egyptian themed. There are still pyramids and Arabian-style marketplaces in this desert world, but that's still alright because it's not the entire world that's themed in that style. Thanks to the jump idea, we didn't quite get to see it resting there, but we just picked up the game's next weapon, the trumpet bus. It's this game's version of the rocket launcher, but it's not quite as good as the Doom rockets, in my experience. It deals less overall damage, and the way the projectiles fly is a little awkward. It's still fun to use though, because you're shooting explosive nodes at enemies, which is just awesome. It's also keeping right in line with the Mario aesthetics. I could very easily see this sort of thing in one of the Mario RPGs. Pun not intended. I know it seems like I'm just giving love to this level all over, but it's got everything that I like in this hack. There are extremely tricky jumps, it has a lot of fun enemies to fight, there's new enemies to meet, and the big coins are all extremely well hidden. Sure, there are downsides, but there's nothing quite as glaringly bad as the maze from Oriental Garden, or the boss from the last video, so all the downsides seem positively minor in comparison. The Hammer Hell Knights are extremely mean enemies. While we met them in the previous video, we really didn't have time to discuss them before we were talking about something else. In my opinion, however, they're usually not walking around like this one was. They're more often best used for area denial. They sit up on top of a ledge and rain projectiles down from above, a tactic they're surprisingly good at. And by the way, everything I just said about them goes the same for the spiky ball enemies we just met a minute ago, though the spiky ball guys have a lot less health. The level's first big coin is coming up, and this is one of my complaints about the stage. This big coin is extremely well hidden, and if it weren't for a YouTuber by the name of PagB666, I wouldn't have found this coin, nor many others all across the game. Unless you're looking extremely closely, you will never see these ledges from the critical path. And there's a bunch of them leading around the cliff. My first time through, even cheating with map reveals, I had no idea how to get here until I looked it up on YouTube. This little set piece is kind of fun. It's one of the few places in the game where it's smarter to turn off auto run and just take the bridge slowly. It's the sort of trap that absolutely will ruin you until you get the timing down. However, as you can see, it's also, above all else, extremely fair. I'm not going to keep harping on about checkpoints, as I believe I've made my stance on them amply clear by now. Instead, let's focus on something better, like this cave system that I surprisingly do not hate. It's got another big coin, and this one is very devilishly hidden, as we'll see in a few minutes. I think the reason I don't hate this cave is that it's just another part of the level. Unlike Water Cave from the first world, it's not the overwhelming majority of the level. And unlike Groovy Grotto, it's not overly dark. Instead, this just feels like a natural continuation of the stage from before, except now it's just going through the middle of a mountain. This open canyon is also a memorable set piece. If you want to get everything, you have to jump back and forth across it repeatedly. And while each individual jump isn't difficult, you do have to pay attention each time. The enemies on both sides of the crevice are also well chosen and do their best to attack you from where they're at their strongest. You can't see it well in the distance, but that's actually a full baron of hell that I'm shooting at. There was one in the spider mansion, but he was up on top of a ledge. It was restricted to only throwing fireballs at us that we could easily dodge. This guy, however, is on even ground with us. It's a good thing we got a new trumpet just a few minutes ago. If you don't see the drop to the lower ledge, you won't get very much farther in the level before you find your way barred. However, on your way back, the ledge will be nearly impossible to miss as it will be visible right in front of you. So this is very smart level design. That is why I say the trumpet isn't as strong as Doom's rockets. In regular Doom, the area damage from the rocket would have easily killed that sniffet. However, he survived what was nearly a point-blank shot because the radial damage is calculated kinda weird. Also, this is pretty sneaky. There's a very well hidden alcove just over to the left with a switch that we will need to press. The hidden switch opens up the big coin, while the one in plain view opens up the way forward, so time to do some light backtracking. These jumps that I'm doing are called strafe jumps. They're not too difficult to pull off and let you jump a lot farther than you otherwise would be able to. I'm doing them here as practice for coming up. The last big coin in the level requires a precision strafe jump to reach, but that's still in the semi-distant future. That will be the very last thing we get in the level before we leave. The last part of the level is coming up here, and I think it's part of why I really like this level so much. It draws the Western aesthetics together well with the only thing we have yet to do in a level themed after the US Southwest. A shootout in a Wild West town. This is why I love this level so much. It's such a fun concept, and the first time I played through this, I had a big dumb grin on my face when I reached this part. How can you not love it? There's even snipers taking pot shots at you from the ledges up on top of buildings. I can't stop gushing about how cool this is because it's so refreshing. I mean, would you have expected a Wild West shootout in Doom of all games? It's more Duke Nukem style, so the surprise is why it's so cool. The spiky ball guys here are actually extremely dangerous. You can't easily hit them from the ground, and they have pretty much carte blanche to hit you with their extremely damaging attacks. So you have to be on your toes constantly, and around every corner you turn there's new enemies waiting to attack you. It's a great action set piece to end the level on. We've cleared out most of the enemies in the town proper, but there's still some bad guys on the outskirts. The saloon doors are also still locked, and we need to find the way to open them before we can take the fight to the upper parts of the town. The last big coin is floating above a bottomless pit of death. While we could grab it now, we'd die instantly after, so we need to find a way to flood the otherwise dry well. That's why we need to go to the upper levels of the town. That and opening up the exit. The plunger connected to all this TNT is up on top of one of the nearby buildings. Well, that arrow was pointing at a pretty blatant switch, so I think we can safely say we found the way to unlock the saloon. Don't ask me how, but when I was playing, I did not hear this Hell Knight's roar. So imagine my surprise when I turned around and saw him there. Anyway, with his death, we've cleared the streets. Now it's time to take the fight to the saloon. Gotta clear out some pesky snipers as well as the enemy commander. There's another Baron on the upper floor. He's guarding the exit out onto the balcony. And you can see more of what I mean about the trumpet just being the rocket launcher but worse. He faced tanks several direct shots and several that were close enough to hit him with splash damage. And in the end I still had to shoot him with the assault rifle. Don't get me wrong, the trumpet is still extremely good and it's the most damaging weapon in our arsenal by a long shot, but it feels so awkward being weaker than the weapon it replaces. Exit's open. Now all we have to do is flood the well and then we can leave. This jump is the one I talked about earlier. A regular run and jump will never close the gap, and you have next to no runway to perfect the strafe jump. So you have to go 0 to 60 and make an extremely tight jump all in the span of less than half a second. Anyway, as this level draws to a close, I want to thank you all for watching. Next time we'll be heading straight into another ghost house, the Arid Abode. It's also the first level in the game with multiple exits. See you all then.